I'd like to introduce Judge George McCarthy, Veterans Court presiding judge of Athens, Ohio. And we're going to talk about his background and work with veterans in the community, broader than just veterans courts, but that'll be our starting point. So if you don't mind, Judge McCarthy, maybe talk a little bit about your background, how you came to your current position, and obviously you do a lot more than just veterans courts, but sort of how your other work in general in your career and kind of connected with veterans courts today.
Sure. I'm a felony court judge. I'm actually one of two judges in Athens Common Pleas Court in Ohio for Athens County. And that has a little bit of a distinction among veterans courts because I'm a felony court. There are, the system in Ohio is divided basically into misdemeanor court and felony court. Misdemeanors handle cases like assaults, driving under the influence, thefts, what we consider the lower tier crimes. A misdemeanor in Ohio is generally punishable by jail time. So I'm on the other end in felony court, so I deal with more, I guess, heavier issues, more serious issues, all the way up to murder, felonious assault, which is serious physical harm, as opposed to regular harm, just physical harm in general. Domestic violence is as felonies. You can have OVIs as felonies. The penalties are that much more severe. And on the felony side, you go to prison. You can be ordered to prison as a result of being convicted of one of those offenses. So there's a difference. There are veterans courts for both on the felony side and the misdemeanor side.
Okay.
In Ohio, we have municipal courts and county courts. They both have municipal court jurisdiction. Basically, the jurisdictions of the courts run inside the county, and they're divided by county. So there are 88 different jurisdictions in Ohio. I'm simply one of them. I came to the bench in 2013 after being in private practice for 10 years, and I was a prosecutor before that. And when I came in 2013, one of the things I started to experience were some veterans coming through the court system, which I thought was kind of unusual. These were younger folks. Athens is home of Ohio University. So there are a good group of younger people here, about 20,000 at any given time. So that kind of piqued my curiosity because I was seeing more than I would expect. And they were drug-related cases. But one of the reasons I particularly got involved was that onious stat that there are 22 veterans a day who take their lives in the United States. And that translates to about 8,000 a year. And that kind of, I found that to be awakening and unfortunate that segment of the population was suffering that bad. I mean, there are certainly other groups of people who end their lives by suicide. However, it's more prevalent in the veteran population for various reasons, and we can go over those as we go through. So that kind of stirred it as well. And then I started getting involved at the state level. I met Evelyn Stratton. She's a retired Supreme Court justice. And she initiated a program with her retirement called the Stepping Up Initiative. And the Stepping Up Initiative deals with mental health and veterans. And she's been a strong proponent of trying to get veterans assistance and has really spearheaded that here in Ohio. And she was encouraging courts to get involved and start a veterans court treatment program and to get veterans steered towards treatment for many mental health issues that were going on. And that I really was encouraged by that. So I undertook the task in 2014 and didn't know what I was getting involved with. But that's what started the process.
Okay, so this has been over a decade now that this has been going on, and I want to digress a little bit if you don't mind. How would the average, I don't know what the word is, processing of a veteran through the Veterans Court, how would that be different than a traditional court hearing?
It's a little bit of a different animal. I guess to start off with, you should understand that the the veteran treatment court system is more about encouragement than it is deterrent. So we're trying to capture veterans at the very beginning of the process instead of working with them at the end where they might be convicted and placed on probation and made to go to court as a component of their supervision. That's typically what happens in the criminal justice system. You get convicted and you're required to do some sort of programming or treatment as a result of your conviction. So in Veterans Court, we try to capture them at the beginning. So we're very big about identifying veterans coming into the system. So that brings in all disciplines, including law enforcement. If law enforcement identifies somebody that they're in contact with that they believe would benefit from the Veterans Court program, they can refer them directly to Veterans Court. It's not just conviction based or charge based. It's diversion based as well. So you can divert charges by sending somebody to our court, and we'll get them. And our goal is to get them hooked up with evaluations for mental health and substance abuse, and to get them coupled with treatment as soon as possible. And along the way, we help them get coupled with resources as well, because a lot of most of the veterans we deal with in the criminal justice system are of limited means. Not all the time, but a substantial part of them are. So we get them hooked up with all that. And a lot of the time, we're the ones introducing them to the Veterans Administration.
Okay.
And I'm sure you've heard stories in the past too. Some of them have been with the Veterans Administration Medical Center system for years, decades in some cases, or a decade in some cases. And they have mixed experiences with it. And sometimes they have all bad experiences with it. So they don't want to be involved in that system again. So we face some challenges with that. And other times they simply have not engaged that system at all and don't know about the resources that are available. So we help them couple with all that.
So I go ahead a little bit, move ahead and think again. You've got a wide swath of background in the legal system, and you may not even be able to fully answer the question, but I'm interested to know how, if at all, well, maybe those similarities and differences between the average veteran offender versus other offenders who might be in a similar category. Maybe they're very different. Maybe they're very much the same. But I think you're in a better position to think about that than most of us. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the criminal justice system I've been involved with since late 80s, early 90s. And the drugs and the patterns and the types of cases we've dealt with has changed over the years. Certainly before, when I started, a good segment of it revolved around drugs, drug usage, drug trafficking, and crimes related to drugs. In other words, stealing, breaking and entering, burglary, to steal something of worth in order to trade for drugs or sell for money for drugs. Now it's sad to say that it almost seems like 95% of my caseload deals directly with drugs. But the veterans we get, they're a different population, which tends to be a good thing in certain respects and makes it harder in other respects. The reason I started looking into it in 2014, and I mentioned the veterans coming through, they were very, very much younger. They were just may have gotten through boot, may have served a year before being discharged, either for medical or dishonorable or other. And the ones I was coming across were couch surfers. So they were technically homeless. So they were just living. They came to Ohio University because their buddy was going here, and they'd sleep on their couch, and they were hanging around and still getting involved in the drug culture, which led them to my court. They were ultimately caught and charged with a felony, and that's how I ended up with them. So that was, as I looked into it, that was not uncommon, and it's still not uncommon. The homeless population in general is a very unidentified population.
Right.
And the veteran population within the homeless population is even a more unidentified population. And one of the reasons that is, as I'm sure you can understand, is that many veterans are self-reliant.
Yes.
They don't like help. They don't like handouts. They've been getting along, no matter, regardless of how poor condition they're living, they've been getting along without assistance. Most of the ones that we have, I think all the ones we have, all have post-traumatic stress syndrome
Okay.
or some sort of other mental health affliction. And it seems to me, anecdotally, that they're all using illegal drugs to kind of numb themselves
Yes.
from that
Medicate.
experience. So it's very much a catch-22, and that makes it difficult because the first thing you got to do before you can get the mental health treatment is to get their substance abuse addiction under control. So when you get their substance abuse addiction under control, then you're faced with, well, now they're faced full in the face with their PTSD roots as to why they
Right.
have PTSD in the beginning.
Let me sort of insert it a little bit there. The veterans treatment courts typically are talked about as a sort of a team effort with people like yourself, but also you mentioned the VA. I believe Athens also has mentors assigned to the veterans. Is that correct? Any other
Yeah,
members of the team that stand out to you that are important?
yeah, the veteran mentors are what really makes the system work, and that's peer support. And the
Okay.
other is called the Veteran Justice Outreach Officer, and they're
Okay.
from
Very good.
VA attached. So the mentors, the mentor model came out of New York, Buffalo, New York, I believe.
Okay.
Basically, these are individuals who are a support for the individual for the defendant veteran going through the Veterans Treatment Court system. And they fulfill a couple of roles there. Their support role, in that if the veteran has questions on what they have to do or something they don't understand, sometimes the veteran's mentor can answer that for them. But probably more importantly, they act as a check valve for the court. What the court requires is that the veteran contact their veteran mentor once, at a minimum, once a week. And what that does is to ensure, number one, they haven't disappeared off the face of the earth, because sometimes you'll
Yes.
get that. And the other is just it's a wellness check. How you
Right.
doing? Stressing? Is anything? The two questions I ask every session of every person are: you having any thoughts of self-harm, because of the
Mhm.
suicide prevention aspect of it? And the other is how are you doing with your sobriety?
My understanding is the court in Athens has been pretty successful. Is that accurate?
We've had about 30 people graduate since 16, but we have been successful. The One of the things is our program is structured to be 1 to 2 years, and it can be longer than that or it can be shorter, but generally we're looking to work with people for a year.
Okay.
The Veteran Justice Outreach Officer, our attachment with the VA, says that our population that we deal with here in Athens just happens to be the hardest population she has seen, and she covers about 14, 16 counties.
Wow.
And she seems to think we get the worst of the worst as far as mental afflictions.
Wow.
And we had one gentleman who was schizophrenic
Oh, that's
come
very
through.
challenging. Yeah.
But he successfully graduated at the end because we finally got him turned around towards medications that could help him with his schizophrenia. So it is successful, but my point with that being is that although it's meant for 2 years, because people, substance abuse addiction is a kind of an up and down type of life event. You can stay sober, but it's not uncommon to fall off the wagon, quote unquote. And you
Yes.
got to get back on your sobriety horse. And what you're looking to do from a treatment perspective is lengthen those periods of sobriety so that they're more substantial than the periods of addiction. So because our folks are having severe mental health issues coming through, it takes longer to address. So we have people typically, it's not uncommon to have people are in our program for 3, 4, 5 years.
So, the primary audience for this discussion is our class on veterans and society. Do you have any message you'd like to share, either with student veterans who might be taking the class or watching us, or non-veterans who are just motivated to support veterans or understanding veterans in society a little bit better?
I don't know. That's a tough one. Other than there are a lot of resources for veterans that you should be aware of. If you're involved at Ohio University, you're probably aware of the educational one, of course. But you know, the military is its own family, and certainly when you come across others, you know, share what you know. That's one of the biggest benefits of our Veterans Court, is that the veterans help just as much as the court does, or the Veteran Justice Outreach Officer does, getting them connected with services, medical, counseling, or housing, whatever it might be. But it's a sharing of information that really makes it click. And don't be afraid to share, and don't be afraid to ask questions of your fellow veterans, of people who are older than you. They're a wealth of knowledge. So if you don't know and you're a veteran, you should know that there's a veteran service office in every county. They offer a wealth of services. They can also help with disability claims. And also for those who are struggling, they offer food support and get you hooked up with other resources. They each get a stipend of money from the government every year specifically to support veterans. So
Okay.
if you do need some sort of assistance, that's one of the best places to do it, to start with in your community. Also, if you haven't registered, if you've been discharged, I know you folks haven't served yet in your term, but when you get discharged, wherever county you end up in, you want to register your DD 214 discharge paperwork with the county recorder's office of that county. The funding for the Veteran Service Office is based on the numbers of veterans inside the county. So it's
Okay.
almost like a student pupil count type deal, like what they do with public schools. And so that goes towards supporting veterans in your community, whether or not you're taking advantage of the resources or not. And I'm not sure if you know, but one of the stats that I'm always impressed with is Ohio is home to the 6th largest veteran population in the country.
No, I didn't know that. Okay.
So we're behind California, Texas. I can't remember the other states in between, but we're 6th. So we have a very large veteran population here, and veterans serving and going off to serve their country has a long history in Ohio, going all the way back to the Civil War. Ohio had a lot of people that got involved, not only, I meant to say the Revolutionary War. Ohio sent a lot of people within that time period coming through the expansion west. Ohio was always a contributor to the military. So it's got a long history, a long, proud history with veterans as well.
I can't think of a better way to end than that fact that students at Ohio University, for the most part, Ohio University, learning a little bit about Ohio history in the midst of veterans in general. So that's a very good way to bring us to an end. Well, I want to thank you, Judge McCarthy. I've learned a lot here in this short time. I am not a native of Ohio, but you've just pulled me into Ohio history there. So thank you for that. And thank you for all the information you've provided. I guarantee this has been a useful thing for all of us. So thank you very much.